evening. My name is Phil Schomber. I'm the adult programmer here at Hedberg. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports in the country. It's just everywhere you look. You probably have seen somebody you know that's getting started in a pickleball. That's why we're excited to have three members of the Janesville Pickleball Club here tonight. They're going to give us a little bit of an introduction to the sport, and then kind of tell you what you can do to take the next steps as you join the growing revolution of pickleball. So I'm going to turn it over to Dave Brusky to get us started.
Thank you, Phil. As Phil said, I'm Dave Brusky. I'm one of the Janesville Pickleball Club members. Sitting at the desk here is a young lady, Julie Feebig, and then Ed Street. So, history of pickleball, how it came to be. Well, it came to be because it's a whole family sport. And it's fitting that it started out with a family. It got started way back in 1965 in Bainbridge Island, in the state of Washington. And that's just a short ferry ride from Seattle. Congressman Joel Pritchard and William Bell came home from golfing and were later joined by Barney McCallum. And between the three of them, they found out their family was sitting around doing nothing and all bored and all antsy, and were like, we got to do something about this. So they decided that they would take their badminton net, lower it down, took some ping pong paddles and wiffle balls, and started inventing the game. And they wanted the game to be challenging, yet be able to be played by pretty much anybody. So they had kids playing against adults and so on. Good athletes against average athletes. And the sport accommodated all of them the way they went about inventing it. So the kids ended up with lightweight ping pong paddles. Well, ping pong paddles didn't last very long playing against the wiffle ball. They started breaking. So they went about starting making paddles of their own. One of the guys had a wood shop, and he started taking the jigsaw and making wooden paddles out of it. And those, of course, didn't break. Of course, they were pretty heavy, but they did work. It caught on fast with their family and friends. People began making their own pickleball paddles, and they were suited to the game of table tennis. And they started making courts drawn with lines on the asphalt driveways. And pickleball gained popularity, and then it started exploding. And it's all over the world now. And pickleball today is in Phi-Ed classes, YMCAs, Janesville Pickleball Club, Riverside Park, and they're estimated to be 19.8 million pickleball players right now in the U.S. as of 2024, and an increase of 45.8% over the year before, and a 311% jump over 3 years before that. So that's according to the Sports and Fitness Industry Association's top line participation report. So Ed's going to introduce to you how it came to be in Janesville. So Ed, you're up.
My name is Ed Street, as Dave mentioned, and I was a public high school teacher before I became an everyday pickleball player in 2012. I taught in Central Illinois for 3 years before moving to Wisconsin. Then for the last 40 years, I taught of my 43-year teaching career, I taught at Craig High School. I was at Craig, I taught English and advised the school newspaper and yearbook, and I also coached golf. So I've lived in Janesville, which is my wife's hometown, for over 50 years. People here are starting to gradually accept me. I think. Although it doesn't help that I'm a lifelong Cubs and Bears fan. And I have passed those afflictions along to my son and to my 4 grandsons. At Craig, I had great colleagues. Among them were Bob Suter, Bob Altman, and especially Jim Clark. The 4 of us shared an enjoyment of golf, and we became a foursome that played in southern Wisconsin or on southern Wisconsin courses weekly for over 20 years. Come on in, Kathy. Plenty of room. In 1994, Jim Clark retired, and he and his wife started spending their winters in Sun City, Arizona. But when they returned for the summer, we continued our weekly golf outings. One day in June of 2009, or it might have been 2008, I can't seem to verify, we were on our way to our first outing of the summer, and Jim told us that he had come across a game in Arizona that he thought we would enjoy. Pickleball. Well, that's a game which had its origins, as Dave said, in the 1960s, and it has been described, as I heard someone say earlier, as America's fastest growing sport in recent years. And the statistics bear that out. Well, so Jim described the game, the paddles, the ball with the holes in it made out of plastic, and playing on a court similar to a tennis court, only smaller. And some of the other rather quirky rules, such as the scoring and the kitchen, the non-volley zone, so-called. Jim said he had purchased a portable pickleball net and could set it up in his driveway. He invited us over to try playing, so one day later that week, we went over and experienced pickleball for the first time. We all like various sports, and we found that we liked this game right away. Jim then said that he had invited an experienced pickleball player to come to Janesville to teach us more about the game. Jim had met Mark Friedenberg in Arizona. But Mark wasn't just a random player. He was a tournament veteran who had won several national pickleball tournament championships. He also wrote a book about pickleball that has become my Bible of pickleball. And I refer to it regularly, and I learn something new every time I look at it. He also was and is the father of Julie Fabig, who has herself been an important leader in our club for many years. Now, that first clinic held at the Palmer Park tennis courts had about a dozen of us there, just curious about learning about this game. But that was the beginning of pickleball in Janesville. By the way, Mark has continued his association with Janesville Pickleball. He's come back and put on a number of clinics, and he comes back just to play with Julie and with the rest of us very regularly. When is his next time? June. In June? Yeah. And it's great fun. He is so good and so interested in helping people learn the game. Well, over the next years, a growing number of us played pickleball fairly regularly and tried to teach ourselves the game by playing. We found that pickleball was great fun. At first, we chalked the lines on the tennis courts at Palmer Park and at Marshall Middle School and at Craig and at Riverside Park. So we could play. And later, we even got some of those lines painted on some of those courts. That made it a lot easier. And in the cold weather months, we played at the Janesville Athletic Club. We had portable nets that we put in the gym. Regular players in those early days were Jim Clark, Jody Roberts, Dick Larson, Dave Scholmeyer, Gene Scholmeyer, Duan Damron, Chuck Vogt, Ron Ganong, Bill Williams, and others. In 2014, we decided that we should form a club so that we could collect nominal dues to pay for small items like balls and name tags, and larger items like portable nets and windscreens. We called ourselves the Southern Wisconsin Area Pickleball Players, SWAP. And we had over 50 members, if my memory serves correctly, in that first year. As the years went by, we realized, especially as we continued to get older, that the surfaces of the courts that we were playing on were becoming a problem. The cracks made the bounce of the ball kind of unpredictable, and the unevenness in places made tripping a real hazard. So we had an officers' meeting, and following some discussion, we voted to ask the city council to build us some pickleball courts. In 1916, our president, Dave Scholmeyer, made a presentation to the Janesville City Council asking them to support this idea. About that time, we also changed our name to the Janesville Pickleball Club. Anyway, we got word that the request was, I don't know if it was denied, but it wasn't included in the next year's budget. And that was quite disappointing, but unwilling to just take no for an answer, we scheduled a meeting with the then city manager, and our discussion developed the idea that if our members would contribute $30,000, which represented about a fourth of the cost of a 6-court complex, that maybe the city council would go along with it, and they did. We were both ecstatic and uncertain. I mean, we're a bunch of retirees. We didn't know if we could collect $3,000, let alone $30,000. But it didn't take too long, and we did a really wise thing. We made arrangements with the Community Foundation of Southern Wisconsin, and people were able to contribute cash if they had some on hand, or they could also pledge to donate money over the next 3 years. And so before long, we had over $40,000 in contributions and pledges, and the city council said, okay, let's go. And they started construction, and before long, we had a complex of 6 state-of-the-art courts down at beautiful Riverside Park. Our club's executive board decided that we'd like to see the complex named after Jim Clark. So I went before the city council and asked them to agree with that idea, and they did. So our courts, officially named the Jim Clark Memorial Pickleball Courts, were open for play in the fall of 2018. The official dedication wasn't until the following May, so that all of the Clark family members could be there. The courts were available for play for our members and others that first summer, and there was a lot of play on those courts from the very beginning. We began to offer free pickleball lessons from 6 to 8 p.m. beginning in June and continuing throughout the summer. Dave Brusky organized the lessons program with teaching help from members. We have continued those summer lessons every year since, with the exception of the COVID year 2020. And this last summer was the most successful one yet. On one Wednesday evening, we had over 90 participants. Now that's too many people for 6 courts, we realize that. But it still suggested the enthusiasm, and we had over 120, I think, over the course of the summer. In recent years, after those lessons were over, Dave organized a round-robin tournament as a culminating activity, and we had over 50 participants in each of the last couple of years. While these were recreational tournaments with no medals or trophies or anything like that, it gave our students a taste of what competing in a tournament would be like. No doubt some of them will go on to try competing in tournaments in the future. By the way, we have had dozens of Janesville pickleball players compete in various tournaments over the years, including some winning state championships at the Wisconsin Senior Olympics. By the way, a lot of us are seniors. Not everybody. I mean, pickleball is good for people of all ages, but a nice thing they do is have age groups as you get older, and so you're not playing against 20-year-olds if you're 77 like I am. We're playing against 76 through 80-year-old people, and it's great fun. In addition, Dave and a few volunteers have been offering free beginner lessons on Wednesday mornings during the winter months at the Janesville Athletic Club. And we always enjoy seeing many of those students playing pickleball regularly and well. Last summer, we were informed that the city had decided to build 6 more courts for our Riverside complex. They didn't even ask us for any money this time. They figured out that this is a good thing for Janesville. The new courts were finished last summer and fall, except for the painting of the surface. That painting is scheduled really for any day now. So we look forward to having 12 state-of-the-art pickleball courts down at beautiful Riverside Park in the Jim Clark complex. Our club has sponsored and run pickleball tournaments in July the last 2 years. With only 6 courts, we've been limited in how big the tournaments could be, although we generated a profit of over $3,000 both of those years. Now, with 12 courts, we're considering expanding the tournament this coming July, and the possibility of future tournaments will be considered, as tournaments produce income not only for the pickleball club, but also for restaurants and accommodations and other businesses in the community as we get out of the area participants come in for the day or for the weekend. And it seems like the tournament participants really enjoy those tournaments. Our club membership from that humble beginning of 12 is up over...
Last year, we finished the year at 278.
278 members of our club, and often 40 or 50 of them gather down at the courts to play pickleball. While we have posted club hours, we always welcome players, whether they're members or not, and we enjoy having new players join us. We hope that one day that will include some of you. I have just one word of warning, though. The same warning I give to all of my beginning students: be careful. Pickleball can become addictive. Thank you.
Can you hear me good?
May I ask a question about
sure.
the game?
Definitely.
When he started the game, he was in the court to the right, but he said he was number 2. Why wasn't he number 1?
So usually when you start the game, there's one server that has the start, and it's 2, server 2. You can only start and play when you are at, we usually call it the Riverside. Actually, this is echoing. That side of the court only has one chance to serve when you start the game, and then it goes to side out. But then when it comes back, both servers get to serve. That's just how it started.
That's a quirky thing, like I said, but he said in the video that's because it's kind of an advantage to start the game. So if you have 2 serves to start the game, maybe you'll get out to a really big lead. If you only have 1, maybe you won't, and it'll be even, and the other team will have a chance to come back. And it's just one of those quirky things. It's just the way it is. It makes a little bit of sense to me, but it doesn't have to. I mean, that's just the way it is.
We'll be answering more questions at the end.
I was just going to say, I always thought you said 0-0 start rather than 0-0-2. So it just is telling you I'm starting the game with this one serve.
0-0-2.
Yeah, or 0-0 start.
Okay.
And then you don't have to say the word 2, and then you don't have to be confused.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That used to be optional in the rule book, and then they changed it to it's supposed to be now 0-0-2. But some of us still do it the way that we've done it for many years, and everybody understands it's the same thing.
I still do.
Yeah.
So I'm Julie Fiebig. I actually started learning the game in the 80s. My dad taught me the game with the big wooden paddles. At the time, he taught my brother and I, and we were both teenagers, so we thought, Dad, this is lame. We had our other sports, but I grew to love the sport in the 2000 era, and have been playing ever since. And I just love spreading the game to all the communities. I mean, they have pickleball in Orfordville, they have it in Edgerton, it's everywhere. And you know, it's one of the least expensive sports you can play. You just need a paddle, and most places have a ball and nets. So I'm supposed to go over pickleball equipment. So pickleball equipment, like many sports, has evolved throughout the years. In the beginning, paddles were wooden cutouts and wrapped with grip tape around the handles. The 12 to 15 ounce paddles were heavy, so swing speed was greatly affected by the weight. Very few companies were around back then for developing pickleball equipment, especially paddles. ProLite was one of the pioneers of pickleball paddle manufacturing and engineered equipment or paddles from composite fiberglass Nomex honeycomb material that commercial airlines used for their floors. Later came graphite, aluminum, and polymer. Fast forward to today, there are thermoformed raw carbon, Kevlar, and hybrids of different aerospace materials. In the early 80s, a governing body was formed and called the USA Pickleball Association. My dad was the original president and wanted to help spread the sport around the area. The USAPA not only promotes pickleball for all communities, but also provides grants for starting clubs, provides training for referees, has info on where to play anywhere you want, and tournaments coming up. It also regulates and updates rules and restrictions of pickleball equipment. And since we're talking about equipment, the paddle itself should be no bigger than 24 inches around, and that's length and width combined. So that means you can have a small handle and a very large surface area for the paddle face, or a long handle and smaller surface area. And I can always show you the paddles as well. So the thickness of the paddle is usually around 14 millimeter thickness, and it helps with the durability and power. The USAPA started testing the paddles around 2015, and they test the friction or roughness allowed to have on a paddle, which affects the speed or spin off the ball. The paddle is also tested for any trampoline effect, which can cause a crazy amount of speed or power. The trampoline effect refers to the moment where a flexible surface rebounds upon impact, transferring more energy back to the ball than would a rigid surface. This increased energy transfer results in a higher ball speed after impact. If it has too much trampoline effect, it could cause some safety issues and change the game. These tests are actually done by shooting a ball out of a cannon against a paddle. The USAPA tests noise frequency as well, and there's a list of quieter paddles and balls on the website. So basically, the USAPA tests the equipment to ensure the millions of players around the world safe and fair play. And just like any other sport, such as hockey, golf, or baseball, players want the best product to help improve their game. Now for the pickleball itself, there are indoor and outdoor balls, and this is the indoor, this is the outdoor, and there's many brands to choose from as well. Typically, the indoor balls have 26 holes, which are larger in diameter, and the outdoor balls have 40 holes and are smaller in diameter. And the outdoor balls are made much harder with plastic, so they last longer, and it's going on a tougher surface court. And if you get hit by a indoor ball, it's not as bad as an outdoor ball. I think we've all been hit once or twice.
Neither one is like a racquetball or a tennis
No.
ball, though.
Nope. And most clubs usually use the yellow, orange, or optic green. But there are glow-in-the-dark balls. So if there's any evening play, that might be an idea. Nets are pretty straightforward. The pickleball height is 34 inches in the middle and 36 on the sidelines. And the regulation pickleball net is 22 feet wide, which means the net extends 1 foot in each direction beyond the boundaries of the 20-foot court. Usually they're made of nylon and polyester mesh and steel or PVC framed nets. So, like I said, pickleball is one of the least expensive sports around, and it's just a social sport. So, if you ever go down to the Riverside Park and view their courts, they're beautiful. And there's so many people that are willing to help you start the game. You can just say, I've never played, I'd love to learn how to play. Everyone's there to help grow the sport. And like I said, it's everywhere, from little rural towns to big cities. And if you have any,
Let
go.
me just illustrate something. After I retired, we went to Florida for February for 5 or 6 years and stayed with our brother-in-law and Chris's sister. And Jim and I liked to play pickleball. We weren't that good at it at the time, but we liked to play, but we couldn't find anywhere to play. So we got a can of paint and painted lines on a tennis court that actually had been disused. It had moss growing on it. And we just started hitting the ball back and forth, and pretty soon somebody came up and said, "What are you doing?" And we said, "Oh, here's a paddle, give it a try." And by the end of that month, we had about a dozen people that came and played with us. And by the end of the 6th year that we went down there, and we had to quit because they moved back to Janesville, and we don't have any place to go down there now. but we had over 200 players in 3 different little communities in the vicinity that had taken up pickleball. One town had just built some pickleball courts. So it can start very humbly and go from there.
All right, we're open for questions now. If you have questions, I came prepared. If you need that email address to join up. Yeah, Julie was mentioning that Orfordville and Beloit, Bigfoot, Edgerton, Stoughton, you name it. Our club, our particular club, has helped with Orfordville, Beloit, Bigfoot, Edgerton, Evansville, to help them get going. And just like tonight, we 3 are usually the 3 amigos that are doing it, helping people get started because of our love of the game. And so, any question by anybody about anything? You had a good question there a little while ago about, why is that? Why did he say 002? Well, if you remember, as they went further on, every time 2 lost their serve, it went to the other side. And when you start the game, that first person calls themselves 2, because if they lose their serve, it's going over to the other side. Okay? I don't know if that helps clarify it any. Yeah, because the starting serving team only gets 1 serve because of what Ed said. You don't want to have them have 2 serves and get a big score build up before the other team ever gets the ball back. And I always get a question too about when we're doing lessons, how come you switch? Okay? You notice after he was successful serve, he went over to the other side? Well, just think of it this way. I always explain to people, let's say Ed is playing against me, he's serving to me, and I'm not a very good returner. If Ed got to stay there and I got to stay there, he could run up 10 points on me before I could ever before my team could ever get going. Now, let's say, because of the rule, he switches over to the other side. Maybe my partner is a really good returner. Now Ed's serving against a really good returner, and now we got a chance. So,
just a couple of things related to that. If you do happen to win a game 11-0, you have pickled your opponent. And if you are the first server and you continue serving to both the opponents and score 11 points in a row, you have earned a golden pickle.
I haven't had anybody ask the question about why is it named pickleball?
I had heard that it was named after a dog.
That's the best version. Everybody likes that one.
Like I said, I had heard.
The family dog was named Pickle. And Pickle used to chase the ball. Now, the wife of one of the guys, she claimed it was because she had a boat for sailing, and it was named Pickle. But nobody likes that one. They're like, nah, we don't want that one. We like the dog one. Any question by anybody? Any question at all? Okay, thanks for coming, and hopefully we'll see you on the court someday.